April was a good month for things gushing out of the ground. First, an Icelandic volcano threw a geothermal shitfit, causing a cloud of holiday-ballsing ash to drift across northern Europe. Thousands of planes were grounded, causing outbreaks of amusingly unfocused xenophobia during live news reports from airports.
You only found out when you got to the airport. You didn't know in your hotel.
No, I hate Iceland!
So
I hate Iceland!
Meanwhile, down in the Gulf of Mexico, the Deepwater Horizon oil rig did a passable volcano impression and blew up, damaging a wellhead down in the SpongeBob department, which started vomiting a horrifying amount of crude oil into the sea.
Tony Hayward, played by Michael Sheen, because that's how fast the turnover is these days, quickly became the Fred Goodwin of oil and made a dick of himself in Congress, where he was interrogated by Lon Chaney and the cast of a 30s horror film.
Many Americans were distinctly unimpressed with the whole affair, none more so than US comic Doug Stanhope, who joins us now for a bit of fun complaining.
I'm Doug Stanhope, and that's why I drink.
Your hatred of American culture culminated with you spilling billions of barrels of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. And I understand, yes, you don't like America and we don't have a worldview and we think everything revolves around us. But it was a shitty thing to do. The entire summer was BP oil.
81 days in, with BP still using dispersants, the first glimmer of the price that will be paid.
Another day of the BP oil spill. Round-the-clock coverage of oil leaking. We have cameras on the oil spill, and now let's look at a close-up of the camera of the BP oil spill. Everybody's angry about the oil spill.
Man, you got to get down here and take control of this, put somebody in charge of this thing and get this thing moving. We're about to die down here.
They have coverage of boycotts, people protesting BP gas stations. Well, you're irresponsible. You fucking drove to that boycott with a car. Unless you're boycotting petroleum, you're doing nothing. I have a list of things that I'm concerned with, and the oil spill is not going to make the list. There's a lot of other problems in the world. Maybe someone, Kevin Costner, is concerned about the oil spill. He built a machine. The news picked up on this stupid story and ran with it.
Meanwhile, the cleanup effort along the Gulf Coast, that is getting some star power. It is called the Kevin Costner Solution.
Every day was just unending coverage.
Those with a science background will find our machines easy to understand. They are designed to separate oil and water.
Don't they do that by themselves? I'm gonna build a machine that makes cats hate dogs. Dawn dish soap exploited this to a level that I found obscene. Dawn dish soap, just some dish liquid, had a commercial where they came out showing ducks or waterfowl of some kind coated in crude oil.
Not today, they're gonna wash away.
And if you see the commercial, you see a duck covered in oil. Unless you're a complete sociopath, you're probably pro-duck. You're rooting for the duck. But you think the commercial, it's an environmental concern. SaveADuck.com. Throw us $1. No, it's for Dawn dish soap. We get your silverware sparkly clean, and then we save a duck in our off hours. How obscene, how vulgar is that to exploit a tragedy of this level just to promote some dollar store dish soap? Is that not exactly the same as using a rape victim to promote a feminine hygiene wash?
They're gonna wash away this oil, I'm gonna take them away.
On screens in April, a dramatic paper towel commercial starring a singular turd.
One sheet!
Yes, this kitchen Zorro is supposed to be sexually attractive, even though his name sounds like a bowel movement.
This is why they call me One Sheet.
Suppose it's an unfortunate pronunciation, but he probably couldn't give two sheets about that.
One sheet, does plenty.
Spring was also a time for new beginnings. Doctor Who returned, played by Lance Percival, played in turn by Matt Smith, together with his 200-foot-tall redhead assistant, Amy Pond. And as Britain said hello to one big-faced BBC icon, it said sayonara to another as thumb in a suit Adrian Charles hopped away from the One Show, abandoning his role as curator of Europe's and finally Mountain. Having sneaked what he thought might be one last look at his co-presenter's tits,
Beautiful.
All right.
he skedaddled to ITV, where he and Christine turned up several months later in a cheerful morning pick-me-up.
When Daybreak came along, right, some people didn't like it because they're afraid of change and progress and being bored and stuff. But I thought it was really clever, like a TV experiment. Like someone at ITV had gone, what would happen if we took the One Show and hid it somewhere where no one could see it, like first thing in the morning? But the set was a bit depressing though, because there were these big windows where it was often really dark, like the son had just died of leukemia, and so it all felt a bit like you were stuck at an airport at 4 in the morning with some people who just wouldn't shut up and were just talking and smiling and talking and going on and pointing at stuff and laughing and smiling and talking and laughing until you just think, I hate this world. I hate it. I hate this world. And that probably isn't the sort of tone they were going for.
There was a trend this year for absurdly physical game shows which disguised their lack of questions with shenanigans. ITV did their bit with the whole 19 yards, fewer than half a dozen precious questions stretched across an obstacle course in which Vernon Kay insisted was a general knowledge quiz.
Welcome to a brand new general knowledge quiz.
Yes, well, it certainly borrows from all the classics of the form. That's exactly like the famous blindfold tumbling round from Mastermind. There they've copied the University Challenge Lego Wall of Death. And I'm pretty sure Blockbusters used to end with Bob Holness wanking himself backwards up a flight of stairs. You've got to feel sorry for the contestants, really. By the time they'd made it across that obstacle course, they were well and truly buggered. Later in the year, the BBC would try something similar with their very own Guantanamo Strike It Lucky on an Oil Rig, 101 Ways to Leave a Game Show. You'd have thought after the Late Late Breakfast show, the BBC would be wary of introducing gravity into a Saturday night show, but no. The gimmick here was that answering incorrectly led to you plummeting a long way.
Monica Salles.
I haven't seen that many bodies dropping from a scaffold since the grand finale of the Nuremberg trials.
May heralded the general election. Everybody went voting mad. This was to be a three-way fight, not that you'd guessed that from the preliminary coverage, which focused on Dave v Gordon. Nick Clegg seemed so unimportant, Sky News apparently sent a child to interview him.
Are you nervous about tonight's TV debate?
I'm a little bit, yeah.
The first debate was staged by ITV on a set resembling a cheap 90s game show and was moderated by the understated Alistair Stewart, who'd carefully considered his presentational style in advance, as he revealed during a thoughtful interview on Sky News.
The best analogy that I've come up with so far is a kind of conductor of an orchestra. And some of the greatest conductors you see very little of. They're almost self-effacing.
Yeah, he certainly pulled that off. Don't know about you, but I hardly noticed he was there.
Mr. Brown. David Cameron.
Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg. Nick
Clegg.
During the debate, the three contestants did their best to appear human. The incumbent, Gruffalo Brown, creaked out a few smiles, and tried the odd gag,
Now be honest with the public, because you can't airbrush your policies, even although you can airbrush your posters.
Yeah, off-the-cuff gagsmanship comes about as easily to Gordon Brown as breakdancing does to a chair.
Humanoid David Cameron regaled us with anecdotes about some plebs he'd stood near.
I was in Plymouth recently, and a 40-year-old black man actually made the point to me. He said, I came here when I was 6. I've served in the Royal Navy for 30 years. I'm incredibly proud of my country.
Right, so this 40-year-old black guy must have been 10 when he joined the Navy. Where was he stationed? The good ship Lollipop?
But it was mysterious stranger Nick Clegg who impressed most by referring to members of the audience by name, like a teacher taking morning register.
Whether it's on the questions from Alan on care, Jacqueline on crime, Helen on politics, Joel on schooling, Robert on the deficit, I believe we can answer all of those questions.
Afterwards, rather than relying on our own silly minds to work out what we thought about the debates, the news had gathered representative viewers and given them handheld widgets that let them register their approval or otherwise on a second-by-second basis.
Watch as David Cameron says immigration is too high.
These last 10 years, and it does need to come down. I think the pressures that we've put on housing and health and education have been too great.
all of which effectively turned the whole debate into a sort of reaction-surfing video game. This obsession with the opinion worm marks the point at which the news media finally gave up pretending modern politics is about anything other than how you come across in the immediate moment. And to sledgehammer that point home, on the BBC's flagship political fart kitchen this week, Louis Spence turned up to talk about how the debates had gone.
I've never voted in my life, but the one who gives the best performance is Clegg.
You can't pay for that sort of expertise, except it's on the BBC, so you did.
Someone who was displaying the polar opposite of showbiz zhuzh was Gordon Brown, a man apparently allergic to luck and for whom smiling looked as painful as lifting a heavy weight.
Throughout the campaign, Brown was repeatedly shown shuffling around, engaging in awkward small talk with the public, often with a microphone on.
Well, it's terribly unfair on us to just listen into conversations.
Well, that attitude didn't last long.
Yes, because during a meet and greet, Brown encountered Gillian Duffy, a lifelong Labour voter who wanted to talk about immigration. Anyway, having dealt with her relatively smoothly, Brown got in the car.
And then made the politically suicidal mistake of speaking his mind while the public could hear.
Just a sort of bigoted woman.
This was as close as the news gets to pulling off a Noel's house party gotcha. And it was delighted, breaking the news to a startled Duffy with great comic timing.
What did he say? Well, you might not like this, but he said, what a disaster. Who got me to talk to that woman? She's a bigot, or words to that effect. And we want to know your response to that.
You're joking.
Meanwhile, Calamity Brown was on the Jeremy Vine show having the recording played back to him, and he reacted by trying to crawl into his own hand to die.